Half a century ago, Heathrow Airport was frantically preparing for the invasion of an American giant that promised flying for all. London was the very first destination of the 747 jumbo jet, a craft that was nearly 3 times the size of other airliners at the time. Now, 50 years on, and with the last American-owned 747 bidding farewell to Heathrow, Mark Jordan has been tracking down the pioneers of the iconic Queen of the Skies.
Aviation history this winter as United flew the last American-owned 747 out of Heathrow. Around the world, the jumbo jet's been saying goodbye to some of the 5 billion they've flown.
We are so sad to see her leave.
Journeys end as many come to rest in desert boneyards.
I'm gonna miss you, girl.
"50 years ago, the jumbo jet was born. I've been tracking the pioneers that made that very first flight to London. I'm taking one of its first British pilots from prototype to today's 747.
It was quite a challenge to actually fly the aeroplane efficiently without breaking all the engines.
And catch me if you can, bound for London, that world first flight." So this is you on the first flight?
Yes.
Born 1968, an age of space, speed and size. Apollo, Concorde and the Jumbo. As Duxford's amazing British airliner collection shows, Britain led the jet age, but its biggest aircraft only carried 150. The 747 was 400. Before the Jumbo, a round trip between London and New York was over 5,000 in today's money.
Without the 747, it had been a rich man's occupation, so it reduced the cost of flying, in effect, to a level where the ordinary person could afford to fly.
For many months, London Airport has been preparing for the day when the doors of the first jumbo jet opens.
I remember as a crew walking step by step, looking up at that aircraft, and the closer we got, the bigger it got, and thinking, how are we going to do this?
Seats as far as you could see. It was very frightening, as in, you know, to start that. Yeah.
The 747 is coming in a big way.
Every country you went to, crowds standing watching it come in.
As test flights and tours created jumbo mania at Heathrow, Britain's BOAC sent their man Hugh Dibley to America to learn how to fly a jumbo. No simulators, just the real thing.
I think about 10 of us on the flight deck watching this, and you have no idea for the first landing how high you are from the ground, and it really was like landing a block of flats. They thought they were landing when they were over the beginning of the runway. The wheels were still over the grass. Yes, it was very nice to be able to look down on the peasants and the mini-jets below.
As Hugh grappled with his flying block of flats, designers got to work on ocean liner-style interiors in every colour.
When the British Airlines start using jumbo jets next May, the glamour girls who fly in them will charm their passengers with a complete new wardrobe.
We've brought Hugh back to Heathrow to meet Al Bridger, BA's top 747 pilot.
Slightly different than what you're used to.
Well, this is a big change, of course.
And flatbed seats.
Americans may have retired the 747 for smaller, more fuel-efficient craft, but BA revamped these even larger modern ones for 5 more years.
So, this is where you want to come and see then, Hugh? Come and see the flight deck.
Of course, it's all by screens, whereas we had clockwork instruments.
Everything's in here, so we've got flight plans in here, we've got the whole lot, we can get weather diversions.
Back in the day, Boeing installed revolutionary autopilot, but BOAC didn't trust it, so they put in their own sextants, the things used by sail ships to read the stars.
The first 3 jumbos in BOAC had sextant bands in case the automatic navigation didn't work. But we didn't really know how it was going to work in an airplane 24 hours a day. It was used in the Apollo project. We would go down a corridor, and on the right would be all the Apollo astronauts. Those aircraft going, because they were taken to the moon. Yeah. And on the other side of the corridor would be the pictures of the Jumbo, because it was the same system.
There's just something about it, isn't it? It's iconic, it's fabulous, and you have a real affinity to it and a love for it.
Modern 747s are a long way from the jet engines Hugh had to deal with.
We were having, I think, 6 engine changes per week. Engine failures were fairly routine. You had to watch it all the time, because there were occasions when it didn't work very well.
Yeah. Well, these are fantastic. They are so reliable.
I'm sure.
But it was Pan Am that made that world inaugural flight from New York to London. From a photo of the crew, I finally tracked down Elise in Oslo. Amazing to meet you. So this is you on the first flight?
Yes, just after landing in London, and me between the captains.
Does it still fit?
Yes. Oh. See?
But the glitz of that very first flight was tarnished by those jet engines.
Something happened for takeoff. One of the engines heated up. Some people said they had seen flames. Maybe they did, or imagined. But the captain decided to go back to the terminal.
The world's press watched the world's biggest jet return. Some clearly had Titanic fears.
Some people even went off the airplane and said, never again. They never came back. I think it was about 30 passengers who didn't want to go back.
7 hours later, those remaining took off on what's become one of the safest aircraft in the world.
It was very, very, very quiet when it took off.
Do you think people were nervous?
Of course, it's always a new thing. So we decided to start serving champagne. And our purser told us, hey ladies, come on, keep serving champagne. They won't know, even if you're up in the air or on the ground, because it's so far down anyway.
They all landed safe but late at Heathrow. In those early days, Pan Am and BOAC left for New York at the same time with their new jumbos. The race was on.
They had a flight to New York, and it was always a little competition to get there. We always managed to get away first. We always managed to get to Kennedy first.
Yeah, well, nothing's changed.
Yes.
We're still, it's just pride, isn't it? Professional pride.
And here's the funny thing, when Boeing created the 747, they thought it was just a stopgap before supersonic travel took over. But the truth is, Concorde came and went. The Jumbo is still here.
As you make your descent down into the Tucson area, you get
But for how much longer? This month, Delta flew America's very last passenger 747 to its graveyard.
This is where the whales come to rest when they're done with their job.
If you're flying a 747-400, you're flying every pilot's dream.
What a way to say goodbye to the airplane and create a memory for our wedding.
I'm gonna cry because it's sad.
We kind of grew up on this airplane.
When the airplane goes to the boneyard, everybody signs it, puts a little something saying farewell.
This plane will hold our heart forever.
Oh, I think one heart aches for seeing any machine being broken up, but especially the 747. And one thinks back to the days that we had such great times, and it allowed so many people to fly all over the world.